wisdom, shine your love on us. Beautiful souls, unity in love, spirit and angels watching over us. Hello, welcome to Mystic Mindfulness. I'm Christine. Thank you for joining me today. For today, I wanted to go through the healing process on coming out of the religious closet, so to speak. Recently, I've been in a situation where I guess I would call it like revealing that I'm no longer part of the family's religion. I do consider myself spiritual, but not religious in the evangelical Christian way of thinking. So, for example, I don't believe that eternal hell actually exists. And I have a more broad, expansive view of God. And I was recently told by my family member that I did not have the God of the Bible. And it's fascinating because the conversation was started with a simple question. And I thought this person was actually curious and not wanting to start a debate with me. And so I just went and started answering these questions, you know, in true heartfelt honesty, and found out later that it was for their ultimate agenda to tell me that I didn't have the God of the Bible and that they were concerned for my eternal well-being. And this hurt me quite deeply, not because they thought I was going to hell, and not because they thought that I didn't have the God of the Bible. Those things didn't hurt me. It was the fact that I felt taken advantage of for their agenda. And so in that aspect, I also felt like I was forced out of the, safety of my own sense of self. I felt like it was like a bait and switch. So I was, a nice conversation that I thought we were having actually turned into be something that was a debate and for their agenda. And I wasn't ready to share that I didn't believe the same way. I felt I could trust this person enough to share that information with and not have it used against me. So that's what actually hurt me. And so I want to go through the healing process of coming out of the religious closet, and not just the grieving process for leaving religion, because this is a whole new aspect to this whole thing. I don't think it may be somewhere subconsciously I thought, I was a little worried or concerned about doing this. But it does bring a whole new level of grieving and healing that I didn't expect in full like this. So it's been good. It's also been extremely draining and emotionally exhausting. But when you go through that and you get to the other side, there is this weight that's taken off of you, and it feels actually very, very good and very healing. But it takes a little bit. I mean, it's taken me a couple of weeks here, and I've been processing through those 2 weeks. It's not like I expressed it and I was done. There was a whole lot of other feelings like guilt and shame and fear and anxiety and stomach in knots and the whole works. So I think for people who were raised in a dysfunctional family or a toxic environment would have a whole lot more to deal with, and say you became religious at an older age, but your family members never really had anything to do with the religion that you became a part of, and then say 10 years later you decided to leave that religion. There wouldn't be a whole lot of grief or healing, unless, I guess, the person was really tightly knit in their religious family, if they were part of this. And then, yeah, that would make sense that you would have a lot of grieving to go through in that aspect. I don't want to minimize that at all, especially if it was even cult-like, and a lot of religions are. So, for me, and I also wonder how, I don't know, and I did look this up and I only found a little blurb on it on a little blog post or a chit chat, post where people were responding. How many religious homes are actually toxic and dysfunctional? It really makes me wonder. I know that my family would have been toxic and dysfunctional with or without religion. But I also wonder if by being in a religion, if it adds that extra element to it, and the weight of it. I don't want to discount religion altogether. I think there are some really good benefits to it for me personally, and if you look back at my previous videos, you can see how certain churches really helped me through difficult times in my life. So I don't want to discount them completely, but I also want to make it aware or bring shed light on areas where it can be unhealthy so that we can heal. That's the whole point of these YouTube videos, is to help heal. So for me, the healing process, just being able to identify it and then relate to it. So if I'm watching other channels, or even psychologists, if I go to their website or whatever and I'm reading about codependency or enmeshment, I can then identify it, recognize it in my own life, how I was abused, and then learn to deal with it and cope with it. And I being able to relate with other people who have been through that similar process is very healing. So that's why I'm here. Let's see where to start. So looking at codependency, and this is very difficult to come out of the religious closet when you were raised in a codependent home. And codependent homes are where there is one person who is either addicted to some kind of a substance, or abusive, or has a mental illness. And the people in the home, children typically, or sometimes a husband or a wife, will take on these roles. But in order to make the family look like it's functioning to the outside world, and also for the safety of the home, and to keep it feeling stable and secure for that environment, the people playing these roles, they'll play roles to make the home functional. Okay. So you have the person at the top who's got the issue, and everybody else is dancing around this person in order to put the pieces back together, make the family look good and functional. And there's roles that everybody plays. In my family, it was the three of us kids who played roles in order to keep the family functioning. And here's the roles. I'll just read them off here. There is the person that makes the family look extremely good. Say it's a straight A student, someone who's always following the rules, somebody who's telling everybody else how to behave so that, you know, there isn't a conflict. We don't want conflict. We don't want the person to blow up and throw fits. And so we're going to try to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. And then that person may also, you know, exceed in school just to make sure that everybody looks good, right? Then there's the enabler, the person who's making excuses for that person's behavior. Forgive and forget. It's okay. It's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. It wasn't that bad. You're going to be okay. She was just in a bad mood. He was just in a bad mood today. Don't worry about it. Don't freak out. Don't create more conflict. Then there's the person who takes on the extra responsibilities to make sure that the home functions the way it should, whether it's, you know, the extra responsibilities that aren't theirs to take on. So they're watching the younger kids, they're doing all the dishes, all the laundry, mopping all the floors, you know, just keeping the house looking clean and taking care of other siblings. You have the jester, the one who makes light of things, who cracks jokes to ease the stress in the home. You have the people pleaser, the person who's always wanting to keep the peace so that there isn't any conflict. They're usually more silent, but very loving and compassionate. They're there to dry tears, to give hugs when things have calmed down. If there's an outburst, this person's usually the one in the back of the room trying to stay out of the way. When things have calmed down, they'll come out and, you know, make sure that, you know, they're loving everybody and everybody's okay. And then there's the black sheep, and there might be more, but these are just a few of the ones that I have. The black sheep, or the one who is rebellious. And it doesn't have to be, especially in religious homes, it doesn't have to be outright rebellion. It can look like that. So anytime somebody is not doing what they're told to do, like don't share our secrets, for example, these are our private secrets, we don't talk about these, and the person goes out and tells their best friend, so they're not keeping the secrets, they're exposing the issues within the home. That person can look like they're being rebellious. And then there's enmeshment. And enmeshment occurs when people are not able to be individuals. Everybody functions as one unit. You can't have your own thoughts, your own opinions, your own belief systems because you're in a religious home. You can't think for yourself, can't speak what you want, can't do anything without making sure everybody's doing the same thing. And there are no boundaries with enmeshment. What I mean by that is that bedroom doors are usually left open. You can't close your door unless you're changing your clothes. And in some cases, you can't even do that in some homes. So that's very toxic and abusive and dysfunctional. Dresser drawers don't belong to you. Anybody can go through them anytime they want, especially the person at the top of the chain. It's, you know, they're free for all. Your diaries don't belong to you, so whatever you write will get read. You can't have your own thoughts. It's what are you thinking about now? And it's almost like your mind is being read all the time. So you learn to lie, but it's also very draining emotionally when you're in your own thought process. Maybe you're thinking about how you're going to move out when you're, 18, and you're, thinking about all those things, or you're thinking about how you are not happy where you're at, and the person that is causing all of this comes up and says, so what are you thinking about now? And you gotta, quick on your feet, divert or lie about what you're thinking about. So you have to come up with some kind of excuse, and you're always walking on eggshells. So there are no boundaries, and nothing belongs to you. You're no one's individual, and that includes your own personal private thoughts are not your private thoughts. So in narcissistic homes, which oftentimes this is all wrapped up, you have a codependency, enmeshment, you have narcissism. And in narcissistic homes, you have the adult figure who's godlike. And they use that role to manipulate and control through power, their authority, to make everybody else dance around them or keep them under their thumb. In narcissistic homes, there's psychological abuse and oftentimes physical abuse that will go with that if they see that the psychological abuse is not working. So to keep members of the family under the power and control of the godlike figure, gaslighting is used for the psychological control. And here's just a few, there's more, but here's some tactics that gaslighters will use. Trivializing or minimizing your feelings. So you express a feeling and it's not that bad, you need to get over it, or you're too sensitive, you're taking it way out of context, you don't know what you're talking about. Ignoring or not acknowledging, I guess that would go with you don't know what you're talking about. You didn't understand that right. Or just completely ignoring you and not even hearing what you say at all, and that's intentional. Diverting the conversation so they change topics so they don't have to, and it's very underhanded, so you don't even actually see that it's coming or recognize that it's there. It's just they pause for a moment, they ignore it for a little bit, and then change the topic. Blowing smoke screens or deflection. So they're creating maybe conflict, another different type of conflict to create a diversion. They don't want to deal with the conflict that you're bringing up because you're exposing something within them. This is usually how it happens. You're exposing something they don't want to see within themselves, so they create a ruckus in some other area and then turn around and blame you for it. So blaming's another one. You're at fault here, this was your deal, and sometimes it's way off topic. So it's like, you didn't clean up your room today and I'm not happy about that, and you really need to be a better child and do things better to keep this family looking good. And so they switch the topic and blame you, and sometimes they'll blame you for the things that you're confronting on. So if you confront something, it's your fault because you didn't fix it in the first place. It's your fault that you didn't do this and you didn't do that. And if you had done this or done that, then this conversation wouldn't be happening. So that's another one. Twisting your reality or your words on you. So you'll maybe confront a situation, want to deal with it, and they'll take what you're saying and use it on you, or twist your words to make it look like you're being horrible. They'll even put words in your mouth that you didn't say and and this is where the twisting would come in. They'll keep some of the words you said, add words to it, and then twist it back on you to make you look like you're horrible, absolutely horrible for even thinking about bringing this topic up. So they'll also name call. They'll just start saying things, naming you for things that aren't you at all. Yeah, so there's I don't know, there's a lot that's just packed into this, and it really plays a huge role in a time where you are grieving from your own leaving of a religion because you've recognized the errors in it, and then having to come out to your family who may have these toxic behaviors, and you're having to, and you don't have to, I guess you don't have to. I felt like I had to eventually, because I felt like, wait a second, I didn't want this conversation, and now I'm in this conversation, and I am. I felt like I was being exposed on things that I wasn't ready to come forward with. So at that point, I was like, okay, well, now that it's out, I should just go ahead and tell the rest of everybody else. And so when you do this, there's a huge weight, and if those same feelings that you grew up with in your childhood can come rushing back. You're walking on eggshells, your stomach's tight, your muscles are tight, you're maybe even nauseous if it was, deep-seated pains that you haven't dealt with in the whole trauma area. So yeah, you can have headaches even. There's a lot going on. And for me, I'll just say this, for me, I recognized the codependency from taking a class, funny thing, in a church. So I took a class in a church, and it was about codependency, and that was the first time that I recognized the toxic behaviors in my own family. And that was years and years ago. And I slowly started healing from them within myself. It was just the recognition of it, and then being able to deal with the guilt and the shame of childhood, going, oh, that wasn't mine to carry. I didn't have to carry that all these years. So learning that, and then, not too long ago, I recognized the people-pleasing behaviors within myself, and I started working on those. And then here, within the last couple of weeks, this situation came up, and I actually had to set some healthy boundaries. And this was a first time for me in my family. So this was a huge for me, but also extremely difficult to do. So with that, I did have, like I've said, I had feelings of guilt and shame by having my own thoughts and opinions, and knowing that they won't agree with me. So even before I came out and expressed, my new viewpoints with anybody, I was concerned about letting people know with these feelings. I was worried that they would not. It's a very interesting thing. I was worried of the abuse. That's what it comes back down to. I was concerned about the abuse and how I would handle it. So having my own thoughts and opinions and knowing that they wouldn't agree with me brought feelings of guilt and shame and fear. So it's also interesting as I look back on my life, and maybe you'll do the same, how growing up in this type of toxic environment, I sought out relationships in my personal close friends. I'd seek out relationships where I didn't have to make my own decisions, or somebody who was more authoritative or more in control, where I could be that submissive person and just be guided and directed, because I never felt comfortable in my own skin to do that. So I'd always seek out these toxic relationships for fear that I wouldn't have the ability to make my own choices and own decisions. So that would be an area to look out for as well in your own life. So to heal through this, the healing process starts with setting healthy boundaries. Well, first of all, it starts actually with recognizing the patterns of behavior within yourself and outside of yourself that need to be healed. And in recognizing that, then you're able to find health and healing. The second step for me was being able to set a clear, healthy boundary. And oftentimes with narcissists, it's very difficult to set a healthy boundary because they'll ignore you or switch the topic and they don't want to discuss it. So in that case, I suppose the only thing the choice you have at that point, if you're not being heard, is to walk away. Just choose not to have a relationship with somebody who's that unhealthy. There's consequences for that, and there's another aspect of the grieving process that is going to need to be healed. And I recommend therapy for this because it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. For me, the boundary setting was recognizing the patterns of behavior that were being used against me and stating those clearly. And fortunately, all of this was in a text message, so I had time to really process this. If it was over the phone, it would have just shut me down completely, and I would have had to think about it and then get back to the conversation later. So fortunately for me, this was all in text, and I was able to identify the patterns of behavior that were unhealthy and state those and explain why it's unhealthy and this is not acceptable to me, so this is my boundary. Making it very clear and concise. So for me, my boundary was I am no longer able to have relational conversations with you that involve feelings and emotions. We can talk about basic everyday activities, and that's about it, because I don't feel that you're able to care for my emotional content in a way that's healthy for me. I feel that it's being used against me, and I'm not okay with that. So from here on out, I will only discuss things at a very basic activity, daily activity level. Beyond that, cannot. So that was my boundary. But in order to get to that boundary, I have some books here that I would recommend as well. So not just therapy, but books as well. This is Facing Codependency by Pia Mellody. And there's two other books here, and they're by the same person. Set Boundaries and Find Peace. I don't know if you can see that. And then Drama Free. Those are good books. There is Boundaries and Protection. There is Emotional blackmail, the verbally abusive relationship, and then there's a nice little pocket book, which is probably my favorite out of all of them. Well, now that I know what codependency is and I've kind of, gone through the whole thing, this has been very helpful because it's really good. So I recommend that one too. Setting boundaries. I hope this has been helpful for you. I wish you the best during this grieving process and the healing process. Please get the help you need. I am fortunate to have other close friends and family that have been supportive to me through this process. So seek out help when needed. Validation, it's very interesting for me that I'm still needing validation to make sure I've done it right. I guess I'm not quite done, because when I did set the boundary, there was huge levels of guilt and shame. Did I do right? Did I do okay? Was I too hard? Was I loving enough? Now remember, I was the people pleaser. So it was extremely difficult for me to set up this boundary, especially since throughout the years this toxic behavior persisted. It persisted. So that was quite painful and very confusing to me as I was setting this boundary. And so the validation from other people, the support, it's really necessary. So seek help where you can with people you can absolutely trust 100%. And if you need, please get therapy. I really recommend it. And read the books. They're good. They're very helpful. It helped me a lot. So when you're not in therapy and you're just looking for some extra advice, which is what I did, I'm not in therapy currently. I went back to the books. I've had these books a long time, except for the Drama Free. I just recently got that one, but the other books I've had quite some time. So actually I got the Drama Free book recently because of the situation. So yeah, just reading through the books again, I highlighted, stuff in them. So it was easy for me to go back to areas where I had, suffered and needed the extra help. So I was able to go through, find those areas and be like, oh yeah, this is where I was at. This is what I'm dealing with. This is spot on with what I'm currently at. And then they, of course, give help for how to set the boundaries as well. So I used that technique on how to set healthy boundaries. And then I would go to my support group and say, okay, this is what I'm about to do. Does this sound like it's effective? Does it sound too harsh? Is it healthy? Am I also being healthy? I think that was a huge concern for me too, because when you come out of a dysfunctional toxic family, I have to look at myself too and go, in which ways am I carrying this trauma and perpetuating it in my own life? And not fun to do. It's painful because yes, I've hurt people. Yes, I've done things that were so normal and natural for me to do because this is, a normal childhood. You grow up in your home thinking it's a normal behavior, so you take on these patterns of behavior and you do perpetuate them. And so yeah, it's painful to recognize where you've hurt other people by these patterns of behavior unintentionally. So yeah, it's a healing process all the way around. And it does relate to religion in the aspect that I wonder how many people in religious homes have grown up in this type of toxic environment, because religion, you have to believe a certain way. The whole family has to believe a certain way. The whole church has to believe a certain way. So in that aspect, you don't have your boundary to believe or have your own opinion. Have your own beliefs, have your own opinions. it's usually not acceptable to speak out against anything you don't agree with regarding the belief system. So that's why I question this. I wonder how many people in religions and in religious homes suffer from enmeshment, codependency, and then the tactics that are used by psychological abuse, gaslighting, in order to keep things under wraps, under control, under the authority and the power. I don't know if there's any statistics out there. I did try to look up some things, and I just found, some chit-chatty blog stuff. So I knew that obviously if there's that, there's more somewhere out there. I'd probably be able to find it. But yeah, anyway, just curious thoughts. But definitely something that I think is a lot more common in religion than outside of it. So wishing you the very best on your own healing journey. I hope this helps. I love you. Take care. Have a great day.